Hi guys, I want to talk to you today about an issue that was prompted after speaking to my friend Matt, who does a style of karate called, I believe it's called Waru. I may be getting that totally wrong, so if I am, sorry Matt. But in his style there are 31 kata. Now, if you discount the first couple, which are just basically Kihon kata, which is say the same as Taikyoku Shodan, Taikyoku Nidan, which is just basic exercise katas and just basic movement katas that have no bunkai, you're still left with a vast number of katas in their syllabus. I mean, my own style, GKR, has a fusion from, I believe, Shudokan and Goju Kai, which is a Goju-Ryu derivative. And Shudokan is, well, I guess is very close to Shotokan. And we have 15 kata plus 2 that our founder created, which are not part of our syllabus. So up to 4th Dan, you need to know 15 kata. And again, we have 2 Kihon katas at the beginning and then 13 bunkai katas. And now bunkai katas are katas that I would say are attempting to teach you some kind of self-defensive principles, if not actual self-defense techniques. So, seeing that this guy had 31 kata in his syllabus and he said he knows more than that, and my own founder, Robert Sullivan, I believe at one stage knew over 50 katas. And with respect to him, and to Matt, I very much am opposed to collecting kata like Pokemon cards. You know, a kata it's not about how many kata you know. No, it's about how many kata you know. There's how many times can I use the word "no" in one sentence? It's not about the ability to perform patterns and memorize footwork, because we can all waste our time doing that. We might as well go to the dance studio and learn ballet. As my style matures, it is very much trying to have a deeper understanding and relationship with kata, which I think is very laudable. And one of the things that I hear time and again, which incidentally I don't completely agree with, but is the oft repeated saying that each kata was an entire fighting system in its own right. Now, that may well be true that one or two or several katas that was the case. That it may well be that some of the old masters who were prohibited from writing down or even practicing martial arts may have encapsulated their fighting philosophy and their movement principles in a single kata. There's no kata that I look at where I can see how that's the case, because you just don't get enough. You just don't get enough out of it. Enough variety out of any kata where you can say, well, that encapsulates all that you need to know about fighting. I mean, in my style, we do cipher, and Sensei Anthony Ryan has researched that quite considerably, and he's taught some excellent seminars where he's talked about the principles of moving to optimal positions. So cipher has different levels where it teaches you front to front, toe to toe, toe to side, and toe to rear positioning as you move around an opponent from less optimal to maximally optimal position around the opponent. He's talked about the ways that you can use grappling within the kata, the ways that you can use stances within the kata, and all of that's very, very impressive, except for the fact that the kata has some very, very specific techniques which you would not consider to be karate truisms, that is to say, techniques which you can apply across all situations. So for example, you could say that the use of a grounded stance was a truism. There's no time in karate really when having a good stance that works well for you is not beneficial. Now, Cypher shows the use of lowering your centre of gravity through the use of shikodachi, for example. But then there are lots of techniques which are really, really very specific and don't seem to be demonstrating a truism, but really seem to be demonstrating just a specific response to a specific, very, very narrow attack. So to suggest that a kata of just 20 moves represents the entirety of somebody's fighting style seems to me to be rather short-sighted. Nevertheless, if you take the principle that people's practice of their fighting style was most embodied through the practice of kata, which is to say solo practice, then it seems to me that very few of us really know our katas, which is to say that we understand all the permutations, all the possible bunkai, all the lessons, all the truisms, all the principles that are encapsulated in even one or two kata. Now, my friend Matt, he quite impressed me. You know, he had a good demonstration of the bunkai of his katas. But whether or not he knew them well enough to adjust them for a self-defense situation, whether he'd gained all of the lessons that there were to be gained from even one kata, I would contest, and that's not because he's not a very competent martial artist, but just because if he's learning 31 katas, or when's he ever going to get the time to master any one of them? So, to my mind, for example, my favourite katas are Cypher and Kurunfa, both Goju katas. And I've been doing Cypher for 13 years, Kurunfa for probably 9 years. And when I was practicing Kurunfa very much for my grading, I did it quite intensively for maybe 4 or 5 years. And I still didn't feel that I deeply understood the kata. I was starting to really get a sense of the movement of the kata, the stances, the depth of the kata, but I still felt there was a lot more that I could have taken from it. So to have a broad syllabus of kata, on one hand, if you just consider kata to be teaching technique rather than principles, then it makes sense to have a broad syllabus of kata, because it's just a way to remember lots of different techniques that you might forget if you practice solo. So, for example, supposing because karate was prohibited, or self-defense, unarmed combat was prohibited for a while in Okinawa, it might be risky to get together, or at the very least difficult to get together and practice with people. And even in the modern age, you don't always have access to people to practice with, but you can practice a kata anytime, even on your own. And if you consider a kata to be nothing more than the encapsulation of specific self-defense techniques against specific situations. So, for example, in MP, where you wrap your hand around their neck and then drive a knee into their sternum, or in the numerous kata where you go low, attack the groin, and then disengage by breaking one hand free with the other hand, or in Kurunfa, where you parry and then come through with a back fist. They appear to me to be very specific situational solutions to specific attacks by an opponent. And if you consider kata to be nothing more than a collection of techniques arranged into a sequence to help you remember some of the most common situations that you might need to resolve, then it makes perfect sense to learn lots and lots of katas. But if you do consider kata, as seems to be the growing trend within my own style, that you consider kata to be embodiments of an entire system rather than just a series of techniques, then it really doesn't make sense to learn lots of kata at all. In fact, perhaps in my style we should learn two. We should learn something from Shuriken and something from Goju, which encapsulate Nahate and Shurite schools of martial thought. Or perhaps, I don't know. I don't want to say specific ones. I'm just talking off the top of my head here. But I would be interested to hear your opinion, guys. Do you think that a broad syllabus of katas is the way to go? or do you think that a narrow syllabus of one or two studied deeply is the way to go forwards? You take care.